So here are some example questions whereby I'm going to go from a precedence table to an activity network. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my table here and identify the things that I know that have to be in the network. So there are two lines here, meaning that A and B will come out of the source node, so they don't depend on anything. What I also have is A, B, C, and D in this column here, but E is missing, so that means E has to be going into the sync node. And the third thing that stands out, C and D need to come together and go into the node just before E. So keeping in mind those three things, let's draw the activity network. So my source. Now I'm keeping in mind the three things, but I'm also going to go sequentially through it and hopefully the plan works out. I would suggest you do this in pencil or redraw it later on if needs be, just to make it a little neater. So A and B come out of the source node. Following on from B, we'll have C. Following on from A, we'll have D. And then we have both C and D come together and E will follow on from the two of those. So you'll notice that my lines aren't great here, and that's where the redrawing portion of this would come into play. You might just make it a little neater, but that's a perfectly fine activity network. Okay, let's look at number 2. We'll start with the precedence table. These lines mean that A and B will come out of the source. We have A, B, C, D, E, F. We're missing G on the right hand side, so G will go into the sync. And then other things that stand out here, both C and D need to come together before F, and E and F need to come together before G. But on top of that, we have B repeated here twice. So that's telling me that after the B activity, or after the B portion of the project, you'll have 2 arrows coming out of the node at the end of it. Right, so let's try a rough sketch. A and B out of the source node. Following on from A, we should have C. You'll notice that I'm going away from the center line and coming back again, because I know we'll have to join these together eventually to get the G, and my G typically is out here. If you choose not to do it, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so we have 2 B's here, so that means at the end of the B node, or the node at the end of B, I'm going to have D and E coming out of it. So D and E are going to come out of it, but I'm not quite sure which one is going to be on top there. I'm going to look at the next thing to tell me that. So D and E are going to come out of it. E is going to go into G, which is the later node. So I need more space for that. Hence why it's on the bottom. Okay, so on here, C and D need to come together to get F. So there we go. C and D come together. We get F. And then the last line there, E and F need to come together so that we get G. And surprisingly for me, that's actually quite neat. Again, feel free to redraw it as required. Right, the last example. We take a look at our table first. That means that the A is going to come out of the source node. If you look at all of these, there's a H missing, so that means H goes into the sync. And then things that we need to keep an eye on. This tells us that E, F, and G are going to eventually lead on to H, so they need to come together at the node at the start of H. And then we have repeated A's, and that tells me that at the end of A, that node will split into 3 sections, and B, C, and D will come out of that. Alright, so basically we're going to keep those in the back of the mind while also going sequentially through the list there. So start with A, and then after A, B, C, and D will come out of it. B, C, and D. Just keeping track of it. In this case, after E, we get B. Sorry, after B, we get E even. After C, we get F. and after D we get G. And like I said in the previous one, I tried to bring these together because I know they're eventually going to come together at the end into H. And indeed, all three of those come together. And H then, because H doesn't exist on the right hand side, that goes into the sink. Hopefully that was of help to you.